Let me introduce our guest speaker for the day. Joining us today is the amazing individual, Professor Methika Vithanage, highly cited researcher of the Ecosphere Resilience Research Center, Faculty of Applied Science, University of Sri Jayawardhanapuram. And she is also the chairperson of the steering committee Young Scientists Forum, a research council member of the Institute of Fundamental Studies, and is also serving in several other professional bodies and has done many contributions to national development as well. For today's topic being scientific writing, let me assure you that our guest speaker is an expert on this, for she has won presidential awards in the year 2005, 2007, 2008, and also has won presidential awards for scientific publications in the year 2012 and 2013, and many more. So, my dear all, with that being said, may I invite you all to grab this opportunity and take every bit of information which she has to say. So, with that being said, I would like to again warmly welcome our guest speaker, Professor Methika Vithanage. Dear Madam, the virtual stage is all yours.
So thank you very much giving me an opportunity to deliver my knowledge towards you and my experiences based on scientific writing. I'm sure you have had an idea about research when you go through your undergraduate life, when you are passing your second year, coming into third year, and you understand that you have a fourth year research to do, and you may have had lot of students, lot of your seniors doing research, so you may have had a chance to work with them, help them, support them, and maybe you have talked to them and understood what research is. So research, by the word itself, it says it is search for knowledge. So we are searching for knowledge again and again. We are research. So but just looking for knowledge is not called as research, because it needs a scientific and systematic search. That is very important. So those two words are very important. The search for knowledge should be scientifically done and systematically done, right? So to understand, to find out some significant information on a particular topic, we are trying to search for knowledge in scientific and systematic manner. So that is what we call as a research. So it should be a careful investigation through search for, through search for new facts of any branch of knowledge. It may be even sociology. When you can get, you can do a scientific research in sociology, so that becomes research in science. So when you become a researcher, you need to gather some strengths. So when you become a researcher means that you are a detective, right? In another sense, you are a detective, right? So you are trying to investigate, right, on something. You separate facts from opinions. When you become a detective, you need to separate facts from opinions, right? We can't just give an opinion in science. Being a researcher, you need to give facts, right? You can't give opinions, right? So you will be a detective in a way when you become a researcher. Then you will be a designer, right? You can structure the data, right? You can understand the data, how it visualizes, you can navigate the pathway based on the data that you have. So you are a designer. You can design things based on your data, right? And then you become an innovator. Being a researcher, you mean to be an innovator. why you connect dots, from all these different data that you have, and you make a framework. So those kind of new things that you are integrating, and by going through the methodologies and the traditional approaches that you had through the methodological pathway of your research, you are bringing up something new, right? Maybe it may be a methodology, it may be a new product, it may be a new approach. So these kind of things you are developing. So being a researcher means you are a detective, you are a designer, you are an innovator. Same way, you should be an author. If you are a researcher, you should definitely be a good author, because when you find out something, you need to write it and give it to the scientific community, give it to the public, because otherwise there will not be anything that is gaining from that particular research, right? That you will not be recognized as a researcher if you haven't given your output to the scientific community or to the public, right? So you should be a author. Maybe you might need to have information this gathered by the data collection. You need to interpret and write, and show it to the community. Then you become an amplifier, right? Because you provokes to inspire. You uh, you know um, you give that particular knowledge. You have a voice, being a researcher, since you have had many experiences from doing research. So you can give that expertise, being an amplifier to the community, right? Then you are a facilitator. How you can be a facilitator is you do a lot of workshops, just like right now we hear from different researchers regarding their experiences and so on. So you become a facilitator. You become a facilitator by being a supervisor. You provide knowledge to students, and then you become a facilitator. So there have been 6 roles for a researcher: being a detective, designer, an innovator, an author, amplifier, and facilitator. So those are the 6 roles of a researcher. So to be a good researcher, you need to develop all these 6 roles together in you. That will make you towards being a very productive researcher. Just like Professor Mangareddy Silva, he has all these 6 roles inside him, so that everybody recognizes him as a big researcher. There are many eminent researchers in Sri Lanka, even in University of Ruhuna, and so on and so forth. So that is very important to develop these kind of things, being a researcher. And now we are moving towards the core of the topic that we are discussing today. So why do you need to publish your research findings? Different people are interpreting this in different manner. If you ask from a politician, then that person might say, what the hell, why do you need, to publish your research findings? Who does understand those things, right? And if you ask somebody else, might say a different view, right? Might give a different view. Um, and some people might say, okay, no, no point of publishing a paper. It may be just to improve your promotion, improve your career, and so on. But in the context of the world science, it's very important you publish your research findings, because it increases the impact and the visibility of your research finding. So when you have high citations for a particular research finding or particular paper, that means that paper has a high impact and it has a high visibility. So that's very important, right? So and then we need to endorse our work by the international scientific community, right? So it's very important when you do something, when you conduct some research, when you publish your work, it gathers it gathers others attention. So that attention will give you an endorsement from the international community. So it's very important. And then it will be very helpful preventing by duplication of research, right? Especially in a country like Sri Lanka, right? We are doing research more or less from the money from the public. So we need to reduce cost. Um, Otherwise, it will be, some people might think it is a waste of money. But even though, duplication of the same research means there's a lot of cost involved. So we should prevent duplication of research. For that, if we don't publish, no one would know that similar kind of research has been done previously. So by looking at literature, that's what we do. We'll go through the literature before we start the research. Why do we go through the literature is because we need to stop preventing the same research that we do, with the literature. So that is one another aspect. And then your responsibility as a researcher is to give away knowledge. If you find something new, right? As I explained to you earlier, research means we are searching for new knowledge, right? So we are searching again and again through various different aspects for new knowledge, right? So our responsibility being a researcher is giving this new knowledge to the community. So if you don't publish, you will not give your new knowledge to the community. So that somebody else, some other researcher can find another research gap through the new knowledge that you gave and carry out his or her particular research in the future. So that is how the research flows down, and then you will end up in a novel finding or novel product or something like that, which will be beneficial for the community. So you need to, and further, it will be very beneficial to your career for promotions and to convince the funding agencies so that you will have more and more funding. And then that is how we are supporting a lot of research assistants. Like Professor Mangala has a lot of funding. There are many different researchers in University of Ruhuna and many other research in many other universities in Sri Lanka who get a lot of funding from outside, like from other countries, so that we can train many young researchers like you. Otherwise, if we don't write, if we have not gone through research, scientific writing, then we publish research findings as well. There is a term called publish or perish. So we all know to become known or remain unknown based on the publications. You may know me because I have published my research work. So you may know me as a researcher because I have published. If you may not know me, that means I am not publishing enough, even being a researcher. So as a starting graduate students, you have to start your career. So you have to understand, the scientific subjects, scientific knowledge and so on. So those are being measured when you are applying for your postgraduate, when you are applying for your scholarship. So you will be assessed, right? So to be assessed and to get an opportunity, there might be, better if you have had some publications, right? So at least an abstract publication. By having an abstract publication, the graduate students will be recognized. Okay, they have done something, right? So they know what research is. So that will be beneficial to you in the future, right? And furthermore, if you are if I am a plumber, I would not write about my pipes, my plumbing activities, right? Because uh, his job is being a plumber to fix the pipelines and so on, right? So that is his job. But what is the researcher's job? So as I explained earlier, we have 6 roles. So one of the roles is being an author. So we need to write. That is one responsibility that we have, right? So in writing, something that we do is we called as a manuscript. So that is the written document that you show to the others that what you did, why you did it, how you did it, and what you learned from it. So those things, if you are writing in a particular manner, then if you are able to publish, you are considered as a researcher. So as a researcher, we must write science, right? We must write science. That is very important. It is good if you can, pay some attention to, understand the stages of publishing and value of it, right? So when you have the idea, the professional value is very less. And if you have some data, even the professional value is less, right? If you have the first draft of your manuscript, the professional value may be still less. But when you submit it and until you publish it, your professional value increases exponentially, right? But the personal satisfaction is the other way around. When you have the idea, you would think, okay, this would be a super idea that I got, right? So your personal satisfaction becomes starting, improving. So you think, okay, this would work perfectly. Then you start gathering information. Then your personal satisfaction will be very high, right? Because you have a lot of data. You think that data will do quite a significant thing in the science. Then when you write the first draft, the personal satisfaction becomes the equilibrium, right? Because um, that is writing would not make you very enthusiastic, but professional value will keep on increasing until publication. So these particular stages of publishing graph would say a lot of things about research. So you can see the frustration increases, frustration is increasing, and then it becomes less and less. So there's no frustrations when you publish your work because you are very satisfied when you see your first publication in the internet or in your on your hand. It will be very satisfactory feeling. But in my experience, um, that satisfactory feeling will keep on going even though you publish 200, 300, 500 papers. The satisfaction of hearing the news of acceptance of your manuscript would be the same. So that you will have every day, if you are having, if you are being a researcher, you will be very happy when you hear that your article is being, your manuscript is being accepted by a particular journal. So what is publishable is very important to understand. Um, Nowadays, specifically, there are a lot of publications coming out. There are a lot of manuscripts are being submitted. A lot of research is being carried out throughout the world. So we need to understand what is publishable. The very much interest is given by the editorial board or the chief editor of a journal is the originality and the significance of your findings. So you might have good research done with very significant amount of data and showing very original and novel finding, but if you don't write it nicely, then it will not be able to publish, right? So but the concept and the data should show some originality and significance if you really want to go for good publication, right? Then the writing should be well organized and it should be well written, right? It should comprehensive, should be having very clear statements, um, so that it's very the reader can understand very well if it is well organized and well written. And more specifically, you need to have concise writing and complete writing, right? So consistency should be also there. Your paper should be very concise. We cannot write like we are writing essays in our kindergarten, in our primary time. So there we put a lot of different things into our writing to show the interest to the reader. But you can't write like that in scientific writing. Your writing should be to the point, should be very concise and complete, right? Completion is very important because I have seen some students when they write, they are just reporting their data, right? They are just saying, okay, these are the data that I got. This is the maximum, this is the minimum, and this is the median, and so on. That's all. To make it complete sentence or to make it a complete interpretation, you need to show what that data means. That is very important. So the presentation of findings is an important segment of your scientific writing. You can merely, it should not be merely presentation of data. It should be presentation of findings with interpretations. So if your manuscript has all these three important aspects in your manuscript, then your manuscript will definitely be accepted, right? So what not to publish is also important to understand. Reports of no scientific interest, we cannot publish. Out of date work, if the work is old, then you can't publish it. It's very hard. Duplication of previously published work also very hard to be published. And incorrect and unacceptable conclusions, if you have some aspects like that in your manuscript, then it will also be rejected and would not be able to publish it. So those are some of the aspects why we will have manuscripts rejected. So we need to have a strong manuscript. Present your contributions to the scientific community, specifically if you are going for a journal with an impact factor. You need to show that your manuscript has a significance to the scientific community. So a scientific paper is known as a paper with published with having original research results. So almost all scientific papers that we are reading are having original research results, right? Review papers, they are different. So scientific paper has original research results. Scientific paper should be the first publication of that particular original research result. And it is in a form where the peers of the author can repeat the experiment, right? When you publish a scientific paper, I should be able to go through your methodology and repeat the experiment and test whether your conclusions are right or wrong. That is why we are writing very detailed methodology, right? And then it should be readily available within the scientific community so that other peers can read it, go through it, repeat it again and again, right? So definition of a scientific paper is should be new, should be true, should be important, has a significant value, and then it should be complete. Types of scientific writing, we have different types of scientific writing. We are writing original research articles. That is the one I am focusing today in this lecture. And then we are having review articles. We can write reviews of what already has been published. And then we have short communications. Short communications is known as technical papers as well. Let's say if you have a big data set and you are gathering that data set and shrinking it to a manuscript, and that particular manuscript, there is a small segment of data that you can't include it, maybe because of the length of your paper, or maybe it is having a separate different significance, so you can't involve that particular set of data into this particular research article. So you have a small amount of data left, and you can build up a different story from that particular data, so that you can't write a research article from that particular small amount of data because that is not enough, right? So that small amount of data you can use to write a short communication, right? Short communication is like an extended abstract, should have less than 4,000 words, but it should always have that particular interest and originality, as in the case of scientific original research articles, right? Um, However, the weight of the original research article and the short communications are same, right? In the international context, short communications are considered similar to original research articles. And conference reports, conference proceedings, conference abstracts, those are also there, and those are called as conference reports in scientific writing. So there are few questions to answer before you are starting your write, right? You have to self-evaluate your work, right? You need to think whether your data is sufficient for a full article, right? Sometimes you may be thrilled that okay, yeah, this particular amount of data, you can just go ahead and write, finish a manuscript. But there may be some information that you need to prove your result or prove your interpretation. So some different angles you have to look at, and to support your conclusions, you may need some other support from other angles. So those things you have to think about, and think, whether this particular amount of data is sufficient for a full article. And then you can, think about that from yourself, and then you can discuss with your supervisor, also discuss with your peer colleagues, to get some advice on your manuscript. Like if you have somebody, some senior colleague that you can ask, or some experienced peer that you can ask, because these outsiders can see things more clearly than you, because we are inside those data set. So it's always nice to get some others peer reviews, so that you understand what is lacking and how to address that, right? So what are the questions that you need to answer, get yourself answered before you start writing is it new and interesting, right? So these are the questions that you are planning yourself to write the introduction. Is it a current hot topic, right? If it is a current hot topic, yeah, definitely you have a chance to publish. And have you provided solutions to some difficult problems in the world? If you have provided solutions to some difficult problems in the world, then definitely your manuscript will have a lot of interest. And are you ready to publish at this point? Or do you need to wait a little longer, or do you need to gather more information before you are publishing it? So organization of a scientific paper is very important. That is the structure of your paper, structure of your manuscript. If you have a good structure, then the reader would understand things in that you have written very nicely, right? Because before it is published, the reviewers and the editors are going through your paper. So they must be able to understand what you are working on. That will be easy for you if you have a good structure in your scientific paper. So what was the problem that you are talking is, the answer is in your introduction. So when you write the introduction, always think that what is the problem that I am looking at here, right? How did you study the problem? Is, the answer is the materials and methodology, right? So you need to show a person who doesn't understand, who doesn't know about your research, who doesn't know about your research, you need to make them aware by, this is the way I did this research. That is the materials and methodology section, right? And then what did you find is the answer is given in the results, right? So that is the results. Find is results. Then you have to show what those findings mean. Otherwise, this particular paper would not be publishable, because you need to show what your data means. That is the discussion. So in the research and discussion, when it is together, you are showing the results and giving the reader an understanding why those data looks like that, right? Then, I'm sure everybody knows about this general structure of a research article. We have a title, abstract, then keywords, then the main text, IMRAD, that means introduction, methods, results, and discussion, right? Then comes conclusion, acknowledgement, references, and supplementary data, right? So this is the general structure of an article, right? So you need to make sure that you are writing concisely, because the publisher, publish it costs money, right? So the journal space is not unlimited, right? Most of the journals are published in hard copies. So they are very concerned. So those space is not unlimited, right? And the reader's time is also very important, right? So that is why the concise information deliverable is very important. And then it should be informative, attractive, and effective, especially the title, abstract, and keyword, because those three are being used for indexing. So when you write your article, if you choose a good title, if you choose good keywords, then your abstract will be indexed very fast, right? And people will find it very fast when they Google it. So the process of writing is, in my opinion, in my experience, is given here. I normally prepare the figures and tables first. Because when I prepare the figures and tables first, I know how the data look like. So when you have an idea how your data look like, you understand what is the story that I am building here, right? So that is why first I am starting preparing figures and tables. So I know the story. Then I can start discussing the results, right? Writing methods is very easy because you know what you followed. Then comes the conclusion and introduction, which is little bit hard to work on in the very beginning. So we are keeping it late for later actions. And then title and abstract based on the conclusions and introduction, you have the objectives written. Conclusion, you know what is the implication of your research, so that it is easy for you to write the title and the abstract. Then how to structure the paper, right? Once your tables and figures are developed, the storyline is confirmed, right? You know the story. Now you know how to flow this particular research paper so that you can write the materials and methods. You can easily describe how experiments were carried out. It's very important you cite the methodologies that you followed from the literature. So in citing these methodologies, you may need to find out the most recent citations, as well as if it is an original work you need to cite, you can cite the old literature as well. And then comes to the writing up results and discussion from your results. So in that results and discussion section, it is very important you logically organize the story using subheadings, right? Then it will be very easy for you, right? So if it is environmental remediation research, you have to characterize the materials or the area or whatever, if you are monitoring some water quality, then you have to write about the particular study area, right, first. And then you are writing about the data, gathered data and their interpretations, right? So you logically organize your story using subheadings will make it easier for you to write up the results and discussion, right? So you first present the results and then discuss what the results means. If your results and discussion section is together, the first line would be showing your data, what is maximum, what is minimum, what do you see from the data itself. Then the next line will be what those data mean with regard to your objective, right? Please avoid speculation. It is very important that we are not putting up speculations, because as I told you earlier, we are writing the facts, right? Not the opinion. So researchers are onto facts, not the speculation or opinion. So avoid speculation. You can't predict, okay, this might have had this thing. If you are predicting that kind of thing from based on your data, then you must give some supportive information, supportive evidences to prove that your speculation is correct, right? Your opinion is correct, right? Without giving the facts or without showing without proving it, using some other data, using some other information, or using some supportive spectroscopic methods or something like that, you cannot just write speculations and opinions. And then you can discuss weaknesses and discrepancies of your research. Now, some people might think it is not good to discuss weaknesses, but it is good. Then you definitely saying to the reader, your particular research, even though you are presenting some novel data, these are the weaknesses. This particular aspect I haven't studied. Then that reader, if he is interested, then he can start a research on that, to close that gap, close that weakness, right? Because from one research you can't gather all the information on a particular aspect, right? So you can suggest future research. You have not done this particular aspect, so this might be better to be, studied in the future. Likewise, you can uh, explain, and then you can describe the implications of your research at the, just before the conclusions. You must say the implications of your research from at least one sentence, right? Then it will be very good to, wider, community, right? They would understand the importance of your research. Then it comes to, clear the concise, clear conclusions. So in the conclusions, you are writing very concisely what has been advanced, what has been the core of your knowledge that you gather from the data, and you can specify the future research um, which is currently underway. Also, somebody else to take up, and then should make sure that conclusion is not a repetition of the abstract. Abstract is something different, right? So, when you start writing the scientific paper, language may be a problem for us. Like, we are not we don't have English as our mother tongue, so the English would be a little bit harder for us to write. But if you keep your uh, sentences short, then that would be the best English, because you can, that will be the easiest way for the reader to understand. If you write long and long sentences, then that would not be the best English for a scientific paper. And then you have, now there are many softwares like Grammarly. You can correct your grammar and, context and so on. So those you can easily use, um, so that you can correct if there's any grammatical mistakes in your write-up. So language of the scientific paper is easily be fixed. Um, why language is important is because, we all read about the read scientific papers in English language, uh, and the editors, they try to understand the core of your scientific writing. So we can't submit garbage, so we should not waste their time, or readers time, and so on. So that is why we need to write concise good English in our scientific papers, right? If we have uh, uh, the clarity and objectivity, accuracy and brevity in our scientific language, that will be the best for us to use in scientific writing. So the key is to, have to have an alert on the common errors that we do in normal day-to-day writing, even from the sentence construction, and we have incorrect tenses we normally use. So these things you can easily correct by, Grammarly and other different types of free softwares, inaccurate grammar, and all these things. So these common errors we have to get rid of. And it's very important you write direct and short sentences, because writing direct and short sentences will give the exact information to the reader, right? And then one idea or one piece of information per sentence is sufficient. Don't gather a lot of ideas into one sentence, right? And avoid multiple statements in one sentence so that the reader will confuse, right? So, an example is given in this box. You should not have long sentences gathering a lot of information, so that will distract the reader. And then we'll move into how to prepare a title. Title is very important in your paper, because that title is read by many people, thousands of people, because it is the thing appears first in any search that you do, right? So every word in the title should be chosen very clearly and with a great care. And it should be, all these words should be carefully managed, right? Because title also, you have very limited number of words you can write in a title, right? Few titles are too short. So these kind of titles are there, like studies on brucella. But this title is not very helpful for the potential reader, because you can't identify whether what kind of study that they are talking about. Is it a taxonomic study, is it a genetic study, or biochemical study? So these kind of titles are very general, and will not have much attention from the editor at all. So there are titles that are being written too long. So and then these titles have a lot of waste words. So we should not write a lot of waste words in a title. Then it becomes a poor title, right? So if possible, it is better if you avoid uh, words like studies on, investigated on, observations on, because you are writing a research paper. So research paper is definitely an investigation, right? So you should not mention it again and again. So that is definitely an investigation. So you do not need to mention that investigation or observation or studies, right? So as a comparison, this table gives you an idea about a good title and a poor title, right? The length of the good title would be 10 to 15 words, right? It would be a poor title if it is less than 10 words or more than 15 words. So I would say more than 20 words, it will be a very poor title. And then you will have punctuations. So commas, colons, and semicolons will have in a good title. Maybe question marks, exclamation points would be there in a poor title. So keywords to be used in a good title. Abbreviations you should not use in a good title. Jargons should, and that means technical terms, should not be used in a good title. And all these things you can easily get an idea how good title should be, right? So why do you need a specific title is, it is important because you are using it for selling your article, right? So specific title, let's say as an example, action of streptomycin on Mycobacterium tuberculosis. When you write this title, it automatically comes to you what kind of actions that they are talking about. So better you mention the action, right? It may be the inhibition of growth of mycobacteria. So that kind of clear view should be given by a title, right? Why title is important as is because it is a label for your paper, right? So title, use title as a label. It is not a sentence. So you should not include subject, verb, all these objects and all should not be in a title. And then a title should not have a full stop at all because it's not a sentence, right? And then again, you should not put verbs and all in this in when you write titles. In some specific titles, there might be some verbs and all, but not generally, right? And there should not be have abbreviations or jargons, like jargons means technical terms. And then the summary of a title. Effective titles should identify the main issues of the paper, and it should begin with the subject of the paper. Effective titles should be accurate and complete, and also should be short as much as possible, but should be catchy, right? So should not have any abbreviations, and it should attract the reader. That is very important, because that is the label, or that is the selling point of your work. And then how to list the authors is also very important, especially for the students. So let's say you have done some work. Uh, there is a scientist who is involved, like let's say you are the scientist, the student is a scientist who did the work, and there is a technician who helped you. Let's say he's technician B helped you. So if you did the whole work, then you become the first author of the manuscript, and the technician B will be second, or other co-author, depending on their contribution. But who will be the last author, we'll also discuss, right? So you need to understand who are the authors, who are the co-authors, and who are the contributors. So it's very important for you to understand who are the authors and who are the contributors. Let's say if National Science Foundation or National Research Council is funding our research, so they are contributors. So they won't have the authorship, right? But they will have our acknowledgement, right? So other contributors would be uh, if somebody is editing our paper. Let's say we are sending our paper to language editor. So that language editor will not be an author of our paper, right? If somebody is proofreading our work, so that would be a contributor only. They are not authors for our co-authors of our work, right? So it's very important to understand authors have significant contribution. Co-authors have should not plays a supplementary role in your work, and then we must understand their uh, contribution in our paper, right? There are different authorships: lead author, submitting author, corresponding author, and last author. So you understand, who would be the lead author. Lead author is having the primary responsibility of the work done. So mostly that person will become the first author of the paper. So if the work done is by a student, so he or she definitely will be the first author. Submitting author is dealing with the journal. We call them as corresponding author. So corresponding author is the person who deals with the journal, right? Last author, there is no alphabetical authorships in most of the journals, but sometimes we have. But most of the time, last author is the person who generated that research idea, who is the senior most in that particular research group. I mean, who did this particular research project, right? Other than these types of authorships, we have gift authorships, ghost authorships, mutual support authorships, and cohesion authorships, right? So this, I'm sure you understand from the terms what these authorships are. So these gift, ghost, and mutual support and cohesion authorship. So those four authorships are shown on these pictures. So those are unethical. So don't ever let you do unethical work by gifting or authorships or having a ghost authorship and so on. Then we'll move into how to prepare the abstract. Now, abstract is very important in your particular research article. And as I mentioned earlier, it's very important that abstract has the objectives and then methodology, the summary of the results, and the principal conclusions. So this summary should be there in the abstract, right? So you can understand abstract and conclusions are rather different now, right? When you write the methodology, whatever you list in the methods that you have employed, you should summarize the results based on the same flow, right? If that is there, the reader might have an easy understanding. And then the language, we talked about, the abstract is self-contained. Remember that, because when you read the abstract, you are giving all the details summary as a summary regarding your paper. So by reading the abstract, people can understand what is in your paper, so whether you should go through your paper or not. So abstract is one paragraph most of the time. And then it is the advertisement for your article, just like the title. Abstract is also like an advertisement for your article. So it's very important to have a clear abstract, and then with the separate sections like methodologies and then results and discussion. So avoid making keywords very general and too narrow, because keywords are very important. That is another selling point of your work. So keywords, abstract, and title are the main advertisement points or selling points of your work, right? So don't use too general keywords or too narrow keywords, right? Should be related to your work and the not the jargons. So writing an introduction, as I described earlier, the introduction should answer these 5 questions. So when you answer these 5 questions, it becomes a funnel so that you can go into the objectives very easily. So in the very beginning, you are writing the overall problem of your study area, and then existing solutions for those problems that you discuss, and which one is the best, what are the main limitations of that particular area of research, and then what are you going to achieve, right? So abbreviations, we all know that it should be defined in the very first using point. So in the both abstract and introduction, and wherever in the text, you have to define the abbreviations wherever it is firstly used, right? So you can't define it in the abstract, and then later on you can you may think that okay, I have defined it in the abstract, so that I do not need to define it in introduction. But abstract is self-contained, you have to remember that. So when you start the introduction, you have to define the same abbreviations again if you are using the same, right? Then research and discussion section. It's very important that you logically organize the story with subheadings, as we discussed earlier. Then you have to present and discuss the results, very important. And then again, the same thing, avoid speculation, discuss weaknesses, suggest future research, right? So what you have found is the main finding. So you may not need to show all the data. But the main findings definitely you should describe in the results and discussion section, right? Statistical analysis and so on. Here you don't give any raw data, right? Raw data you are not giving, but you are interpreting the data and you are giving it as figures or tables, right? So in terms of publications, the publishable graphics is very important, right? So you must make sure that the plot should be uncrowded. There should not be a lot of data included in one figure, right? The axis labels, symbols, those should be very clear and readable, right? And each photograph, if you are putting any photographs, the scale should be marked and should be clear to see, right? And then text in photos, again, figures should be in English, not in any other language, and it should have, it should be prominent for the reader to easily read it, right? Use colors if when necessary. Don't use colors whenever for whatever the symbol that you have. Don't make it colorful much, because these publications sometimes are published in hard copies, so the colors will not be present at all. And then long boring tables should be avoided, right? So when you prepare the figures and tables should speak for itself. That is very important. Like the abstract, the figures and tables should be standalone, right? So you need to spend time on refining your figures. That is very important, right? Refining figures is very important. You need to pay attention to every detailed thing, right? So have clear symbols, and data should not be, if you have a figure with some information, the same data should not be put in a table, right? So data should not be duplicated. So this is to show, nice figures that have been found in papers. So these kind of figures are very attractive. If you are preparing figures, please try to prepare these kind of attractive figures, so that will receive the attention from the editor for sure. Tables also, this is an example. If you prepare a table, should be like this kind of a professional table, so it will attract the reader as well as it attract the reviewer and the editor's attention, because it's not that long, but it has a lot of information and very clear. It's very important to understand how to write a caption for a figure or table. This, as we told, the figure or table should be standalone. So the caption should be, very descriptive, right? It is fine to write long descriptive captions, because that is very important for the figure or table to stand alone. So there can be different information that you need to put in to a figure or table caption. Should be a declarative, and methods should be included, and also statistical information should be included in a figure or table caption. This is just an example. Here you can see the declarative title is given, and even the methodology is briefly given. I mean, this particular figure has a simple methodology, so it is given. And then statistical information also is being detailed. So these are, a very professional type of figure captions. This one also, that kind of an example, you can see it's a long caption, but all the information are given. So just by looking at this particular figure, you can get a lot of information and you know what it is discussing on, right? Then we are moving into conclusion writing. Conclusion should present the global and specific conclusions. Should not present the methodology. It should not present the objectives. Should indicate the most appropriate and highlights that you got from your data, right? So do not summarize the paper at all. That is done by the abstract. So avoid judgment about the impact, but you can mention the future perspectives or implications from your research, right? Referencing is very important. When you use references, I'm sure you know how to do referencing. When you use referencing, it should to add authority to your argument, right? That is why you write references, you cite references to add credibility to your information. When you need to prove something, you refer something, some other person's work, and then you say, okay, my idea is being, proved by this data. So you need to give credit to this information and ideas too, so that you are citing references. Also, you need to increase and spread of knowledge, and show depth, breadth of the quality of your reading. You cite references, right? Citing references are very important. In terms of referencing, you need to make sure that you are citing very recent references. That is very important because you that shows that you are having up-to-date knowledge on the work that you are doing, right? So when to cite is when you uh, have some direct quotes, then you are citing any statistics, any studies, theories, facts. For all these things, you are citing, even paraphrasing. References, it's very important to get them right. Um, so you have different referencing styles. I'm sure these are known by, author date, that is Harvard reference style, and then numbering reference style, that is called Oxford or Chicago referencing style. Then Vancouver referencing style is numbering reference styles. So there are reference manager software packages like EndNote and Mendeley. So it's better you use these kind of software packages. Mendeley is very good, free, and anybody can use it. EndNote you need to pay, but it's better than Mendeley.